Erev Tov. We're in Mesillas Yeshorim, chapter 23, and that's the end of the subject of humility. We should be wrapping it up this week. It's been many weeks already about the subject of humility. So this parak was about how to acquire humility, and the last we're up to was about mafside amidas, those which means the things that inhibit, detract, contradict humility. And a person, besides acquiring it, he also has to know those obstacles that inhibit humility, and he has to try to remove those obstacles. So he has a list of 3 mafsidim. This is towards the end of the parak 23, and just to recap the first 2 that we did, altogether there are 3, and the first one was a ribui v'sfia b'tovas olam hazeh. When a person has enough, an abundance of the good of this world, somehow that brings him to arrogance, and therefore he says that Hasidim, they chose sometimes to intentionally afflict themselves. It doesn't mean dafka that they the self-affliction we're talking about, he says, like fasting, things like that a person would abstain. This has nothing to do with the abstention abstinence that we spoke about in Perek Yud Gimel. There's such a thing as not taking more than you need. The person should not indulge, and not only not indulge, just take the minimum. That was abstinence. This is not the subject of abstinence, because abstinence, he does take what he does need. That was very important over there, that he says that he doesn't take what he does not need, but he does take what he does need. But here, this is a drill once in a while that a person would even take less than he needs. Not as a way of living, but just as an emergency measure kind of a thing, in order to put things in the right perspective. When things get out of the right perspective, so a person needs an injection. An injection is not the way to live. But once in a while, a person has to have some extra booster. So the fact that a person has enough, and even abundance, which is not yet anything arrogant, but it brings him to arrogance. And why is that? It seems that, as we mentioned many times, the shorish, the root of humility is going to be that a person realizes that he's deficient, he's not self-sufficient, he doesn't have everything from himself, his qualities that he has are not perfect, and his deficiencies are many, and other reasons that we spoke about many times. But when the guf feels full, so then he's apt to fool himself. When the guf, the body aspect of man, feels satisfied, so he gets drunk into the attitude that he's satisfied, he's good, everything's good, he feels perfection. When the guf feels, for instance, hungry, so then he doesn't feel that feeling of completion and perfection, and then it's easier for him to see things in the real reality. It means there's nothing. The person here is not suffering in the sense that he doesn't have food. He has food in the refrigerator. He just is not eating it. He's consciously not eating it. For a day, let's say he'll take a day off, he's not going to eat. He's going to make a fast day, a personal fast day, not a public fast day, a private fast day. And his purpose is just to get his guf to realize that he's human and he needs food and he can't live without food. He's very insufficient. He's not perfect. And that makes him able to think clearly about all of his other deficiencies. It isn't the point to say that he doesn't have food. He happens to have food, but you see what the guf is. The guf is something that needs to be constantly supplied, and if he doesn't have it, he's very fragile. That makes a person able to think more of his limitations, deficiencies. He doesn't think that he's God, puts things back into perspective. So that's the first inhibitor. That was when a person has enough. Really, we'd like to have enough. We don't ask Hashem to give us less. We ask for svia, v'chalta, v'savata. We ask that we should be satisfied, and even abundance also, like it says, that Hashem is going to give you bracha, you'll have an abundance. But then it says, you got to be careful. When a person has an abundance, he has to be wary that he shouldn't misuse that. And like it says, it brings the pasuk, that you might eat and be satisfied, and you build good houses, and you'll have an increase of your cattle, etc., and much gold and silver, and everything that you have will increase, and then you might become arrogant and forget about Hashem. So it's not a bad thing in essence, in itself. It's not a bad thing to have an abundance, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous to have an abundance in a way that a person starts thinking of himself as perfection and self-sufficient. He doesn't need Hashem, and then he starts having all these other arrogant attitudes. So he says that that's a mafsid. You have to be wary of that. And he says that one of the eitzos that the Hasidim found for themselves, the pious people, they wanted to make sure they don't misuse the abundance that they have, so they would teach themselves a lesson by afflicting themselves, some kind of self-affliction once in a while, to put things in the right perspective, to realize that they are very nitzrach, very needy, and they need Hashem for everything that they have, and how fragile the human body is. That was the first one. He brings a Gemara that says that a lion doesn't roar when it has only straw teeth. When it has meat teeth, so then it feels good about itself, and then it starts roaring. So human beings are also like lions in that respect, and they have to be aware of that pitfall. The second one he says is when a person doesn't have yidiyah hamitis. He doesn't see things the way they are, and he doesn't see things the way they are. He's foolish. When a person is foolish, then it seems that he becomes more arrogant. The foolish person is more arrogant. And he says, the Gemara that says, you could notice that somebody is, you could be sure he's going to be arrogant if you find a foolish person. Foolish people are usually arrogant. The wiser they are, it should be that they are less arrogant. And he brings another Zohar that says, when a person doesn't know anything, a simon that he doesn't know anything is when he praises himself. A person who's self-praising, that is probably is an indication that he's probably does not know anything if he praises himself. And he brings another two Gemara similar, that when there's a pitcher that has a few coins in it, so it makes a lot of noise. If it's full, it doesn't make any noise. When it has a few coins, it makes noise. So to a person who's full of meaning and wisdom, so then he doesn't have to make noise about it. But one who is empty, only has a few coins, he makes a lot of noise. People should know that he has something. Another example about a tree, a fruit-bearing tree, a tree that does not bear fruit. So then it seems that they make more noise. The leaves and the branches make more noise in the wind than a fruit-bearing tree does. And the Gemara uses that as a mashal, that the trees that bear fruit, they don't need anybody to call anybody's attention, because everyone is coming to them because of their fruit. But the tree that doesn't give any fruit, so it has to catch people's attention, so it makes noise. At least notice me because of the ruffling of the leaves. So this is a mashal for people also, that people that don't have anything to offer, so then they have to make noise. The people should think they have something to offer. So even though he says the word Torah here, it could be, I heard the explanation, I don't know if it's true, that doesn't mean Dafka Torah, it means any kind of meaning. The more meaning a person has, then he's able more to agree and face the facts that he's not perfect. The whole purpose of humility, the whole point of humility was that a person should see himself the way he really is and realize that he's deficient. Even if he has qualities, he's not negating the qualities that he has. He has qualities, but even though he has qualities, he has deficiencies, and his qualities are not perfect, and he has an assignment, and it's God-given, and this is natural disposition that he has, reasons that he shouldn't think praiseworthy of himself. So when a person feels all that, if he still has meaning, then it's easier for him to do that. But a person that is stripped of any meaning and essence, so then it's very hard for him to look at himself as deficient. He looks at himself, he doesn't have anything. So then he has to start creating some kind of meaning, even if it be artificial. So people that have no meaning, it's more usual you'll find them creating or imitating as if they do have qualities. And therefore he says that a person that doesn't have yidiyah amitis, he doesn't have true knowledge, and maybe that includes other kind of qualities also, so then it's more apt to be arrogant. And therefore a person who has that should beware of arrogance and try to become more meaningful, that he shouldn't have to use artificial meaning in order to feel good about himself. The Anav has to feel good about himself also. He's not going to feel good about himself. But he has to know that he's not perfect. He doesn't have he's not self-sufficient. He needs Hashem, and he's a creation. Hashem gives him a lot of presents the whole time. Everything he has is from Hashem. It's a very happy situation. It's not a sad situation when a person is humble. And now I think we're up to the last point of the Mafsidim, more or less the last paragraph, or two paragraphs towards the end. And this is the last Mafsid of Anava. Odmi Mafsidei Anava. Another one of the inhibitors of humility. Hu ha'eschabrus o ha'eshtamesh b'vnei adam chanevim. Having a connection to, or associating with, maybe it would be a better word, associating, or having use of flattering people that are out to flatter. Flattering not for a good reason. There are two ways to flatter. One is to flatter somebody to give him a compliment with no ulterior motive. That's a good thing. You might say that you want to make people feel good about their qualities. But there's a kind of a flattery that usually the word flattery is used in that sense, that the person has an ulterior motive. He's just interested in getting something out of the person that he's flattering. So if somebody is associating with such a person, he's going to be flattered by him for that person's own personal gain, and he's going to be persuaded and seduced into thinking that he's saying the truth. When a person is telling you how great you are, it's easy to believe him. So that's another obstacle in the way of humility. If the people are interested for their own gain to flatter you, that's going to be the third obstacle. The first one was when a person has an abundance. Second one is when he has foolishness, he doesn't have wisdom. And the third one is when he's associating with flattering people. So we'll see it inside and then try to explore it. To associate or to use means if he has servants and the like, workers, servants that are chanefim. Chanefim is usually translated as a flatterer. Asher v'chashvam lignov libo b'chanfusam, because in their intention to literally steal his heart, which would mean that they're going to try to bring them on to their side for their own gains. Laman yitab lahem, in order that he should benefit them in some way. They're looking for some personal benefit by flattering him. Yishabchuhu v'yiramamu, they praise him and they exalt him. V'hagdil ma sheyesh bo min hamalos hara tachlis, they magnify whichever qualities he has to its epitome. Means if he has some small quality, they'll magnify it. Or uvhosif alav ma shein bo klal, well, they might also add on qualities that he doesn't even start. It doesn't even have the quality at all. They'll add on qualities that it does not have. So sometimes not only doesn't have it, it's the exact opposite. They'll flatter him for being a very kind person, and he's really a very cruel person. They'll praise him for being a very generous person. He's really very miserly. They don't care as long as he'll believe them, and they want to get their personal gain from him. A person is easily persuaded. A person's nature is to be easily persuaded when he has some interest. The person who's being flattered, the flatteree, has a personal interest here also. That he wants to think well of himself. So it's very easy for him to be inclined to believe the flatterers. Surely when it's something that he has a natural inclination. It means in the beginning of this parak he said that a person has a natural inclination to feel exalted. We spoke about it at the time, if I remember correctly, and we asked why that is so. Why do people have such a natural inclination to be arrogant? You have to fight against it. So someone explained the reason is because people want real meaning. People do want to have meaning. That's a positive thing. People want meaning. So if they have it or not, they want to strive to believe it. At least that they should believe so. The real path to that feeling would be to get meaning. That a person has that ambition, he should try to get real meaning. But the shortcut is to just convince yourself that you have it, and he'll be satisfied. The feeling, the quest for meaning, it can be sometimes fulfilled artificially by thinking that you have a quality, even though you don't really have it. That's why people become arrogant, that they could convince themselves that they have qualities. So since a person is striving for that, and there's somebody over there that is trying to tell him that he has it, so he's very interested in believing him. When he hears these words from somebody that he trusts, it's going to enter him like venom. He uses a mashal over here of a snake. A kaos is a snake that when he's angered, so then he lets out his venom. So that's the mashal Chazal use when venom enters. He's going to fall into the trap of arrogance and he's going to be broken. So this is his introduction, or the point of this mafsid, that when people are associated with people that have an ulterior motive in getting their good side, so beware of them, because they might utilize the fact that you're vulnerable to praise, and it might not be true, but they have their own interest in trying to get you to believe them. And you have to be aware that they might be saying things that are not really true. Either it's not at all true, it's mamish invented, or it might have some truth, but they're magnifying it in order that they should be able to get on your good side. So beware of them. That's not a good friend. That's not a good associates to have people that have their personal interests in getting your good side, and they might flatter you in order to get their end. And he brings a mashal. He brings one mashal only, I think, from Tanakh, and that is the case of Yoash. Harei lanu Yoash. Asher heitiv la'asos kol yimei harahu Yehoyada kohen rabbo. He was good as long as he was under the instruction of Yehoyada the Kohen, who was his master, his teacher. He was the Kohen Gadol. But v'acharei mos Yehoyada bo avoda v'eschilu lahachlif lo ulahagdil hilulav. After Yehoyada died, so then his servants, or his sarim, the pasuk says, his officials came and they started to flatter him and to magnify his praises ad shedimu leloha, until they imagined him to be a god, they deified him. And then the pasuk says, and the king listened to them, and he acquiesced to them, to their request. So just to point out that this is a drash. In the pasuk you don't see that. The background of this is Yoash was from the kings of Yehuda. But the background before that is that there was a woman who was Atalia, and she was a daughter of Achav, and Achav was a king of Yisrael. At that time, the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes were split. There was Yisrael and Yehuda, and Achav was the king of Yisrael, Achav ben Omri, and he was very wicked. But even though the king of Yehuda was a righteous king, Yehoshaphat, but they became Mechutanim. Achav's daughter married Yehoshaphat's son. He became a Chutanim. So even though Yehoshaphat was a tzaddik, was righteous, but his son married a wicked woman who was the daughter of Achav. And then, so we have now these wicked people that are coming into the side of Yehuda also. Eventually what happened was that she, after her son was the king of Yehuda, right, she married into Yehuda. And her son, the son of Yehoshaphat, was the king of Yehuda, and when he died, when he was killed, so she killed out all of the royal family in order to take over the kingship herself. She killed out her own children, her grandchildren, in order to get hold of the kingship. So that was the example of her wickedness. And over there was one child that was saved, that was hidden away. When she was out massacring all of the nobility, so one grandson was saved, and he was Yoash. And he was taken as a baby, and he was hidden away. Where could you hide from the queen? So they hid him in the Beis HaMikdash. And the Medrash says in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Wow. And that's where he was hiding. He was held over there. Maybe, if I'm quoting it right, I think that's the way it says it in the Medrash. And he was able to survive for 6 years. A little baby, that's 6 or 7 years, I forgot, 6 or 7 years.
7 when he ruled.
7 when Sheba, Yehoash b'Malcha. So and that, the Medrash says that afterwards, eventually then they took him out, and Yehoyada was the Kohen Gadol who orchestrated the rebellion against this wicked queen, and they instated Yoash at the age 7 to be the king of Yehuda, and that worked for many years, and he was very righteous, this king. But after Yehoyada died, so the pasuk says that his servants influenced him, and then there was an evil period of his life. And that's the famous story that they killed Zechariah ben Yehoyada. Zechariah, it's mentioned in the Slichas and on Tisha B'Av about they killed Zechariah. This is not the Zechariah we know of, the Zechariah of the Navi, Zechariah Malachi. This is Zechariah ben Yehoyada, and that's the son of the Kohen Gadol, who is really, this Zechariah's father Yehoyada was the one who had saved this king, but eventually he was killed because he was given this Navi. He became a Zechariah, Navi of a Kohen. That's based on this episode that they killed Zechariah, who was both a Kohen Gadol, I think, and also a Navi, and he was rebuking Am Yisrael at the time, and they killed him. They killed him because of his rebuke. So the Medrash, in the pasuk, it doesn't say this, that they made him into God, they deified him. It just says that they pressured him and he gave in to his servants. It doesn't say what they pressured him about. But the Medrash, it's a Medrash in Shmos Rabbah, that's the reference is to Shmos Rabbah, Parsha Ches Os Beis. Over there the Medrash says this, that they made him into a God. They said, how could you have been in the Kodesh HaKadoshim for 6-7 years without dying? There have to be something godly about you, and he was convinced. So this is the Medrash that he's bringing. He's not bringing the pasuk. He's bringing the Medrash that that's a case of flattery. That they had some personal interest, whatever that might have been, I don't know, and he was taken in by their flattery that he was something that's more than human. There are a few people you find in history. The Medrash over there has a list of people who deified themselves. Paro, I think, is one of the examples that those Midrashim people are familiar with, and Chiram Melech Tzor, which we're having now in Divrei Hayamim. We're learning now about Chiram, not Melech, Chiram Melech Tzor. Yes, Chiram Melech Tzor. We just learned about it now. He was the one who sent wood and other supplies to Shlomo. So the Medrash over there says also that eventually he thought of himself so great that he made himself as a deity. The Medrash has a few list of a few people. You have to understand what that means. Why do they think that they're a deity? They also know that they're limited by human needs. So, sugya. How could somebody think that he's God? Maybe the other people also like that. But this is a case that he brings, that a person, because of the chanufa, because of the flattery of his servants and people that are beneath him, so he's taken in by their flattery and he's convinced. So here he gives an example that Yoash, just to see it inside again, Yoash, who did good all the days that Yehoyada, the Kohen, his Rebbe, instructed him, so he did good. But Vacharei Mos Yehoyada, after the death of Yehoyada, Bo Avadav, Yeschilu Lachlifno Lagdil Hilulav. After the death of Yehoyada, his servants came and they started to flatter him and to magnify his praises. Asher Dimula Lo, until they imagined him to be a god. Shama Hamelach Aleihem. Then the king listened to them and he was taken in by them. That's the example that he brings. It doesn't say, in my edition, it doesn't say the Medrash, it just says the Psukim, but you have to just realize that it's not an open Pasuk. The Mefarshim of the Pasuk don't say that, that's the simple Pshat. But that's a drash based on these Psukim. V'tira zeh davar boru. You see this clearly. It means look around in the world and you'll see this clearly. Ki rov hasorim v'amalachim o kol balei yecholes yiyu be'ezeh madrega sheyiyu nechsholem heim v'nishchasim v'avur chanupas mishoseim. Any officials and kings and any man of means, whatever level he might be, they stumble and they are corrupted because of the flattery of their servants. It's something that we see in front of our eyes. We don't have to just take it as believe the author. He's saying, look, you'll see clearly, look around, you'll see that people get corrupted because of the flattery of their officers, officials. Therefore, somebody who has his eyes in his head means that he's thinking. Yoseh Yizoher v'yayin v'masei mi shavotza l'knoso lo l'chover o li'yoetz o l'pakid al beiso mima she'izoher b'machalo v'mishtov. If a person is intellectual, he's thinking out what he's doing, he'd be more careful about the actions of somebody that he wants to acquire as a friend or a counselor or an official that should be officiating over his estate, more than he's careful about his food and drink. In those days, the food and drink was a big issue. You'd have to have the tasters. They were scared of being poisoned, both in the wine or in the food, so they used to have a taster who would make sure that he shouldn't be, no one should be out to assassinate him. But he says that you have to be more careful about the intention of these people and how they're flattering you, and then the food that they're serving you. It means you have to be more careful with their words than with the food that they're serving you, because he says, as he continues, the food and drink can damage his body alone, but these friends who are out to convince him and try to persuade him something that's in their own interest, not in his own interest, they can bring down him completely. They'll bring him down completely, both by body and soul and all of his fortune and all of his honor. So be more careful about who you're going to be associating with than with what you're eating and drinking. Very interesting parak. This is in Tehillim 101, and just to point out that the author, the Mesillas brings down two psukim, but the issue is over there, the whole parak is talking about this one point. The David HaMelech says that he makes sure that in his government, or in his cabinet, in his governmental office, he made sure there wouldn't be any corruption. And the whole parak about it, just to go through it, I think it'll also be beneficial, even though the Mesillas only brings down two psukim, but this is Kuf Aleph in Tehillim. I contemplate in what the way of the upright is, of the straight people. How can it come to me? How can I acquire the midah of tmimus? I want to go with tmimus. I want to be in uprightness in my home, in my household. So therefore, lo ashis leneged einai dvar b'lial, I don't want to have before my eyes any lowly thing. Associate tim sanesi, I hate doing crooked things. Lo yidvak bi, I don't want it to cling to me. I don't want crooked things to cling to me. Leivav ikesh yasur mimeni rolo eda, a crooked heart should be removed from me. I'm just reading the Psukim and Tehillim, and I should not know evil. He wants to keep away from being an evil heart. If somebody slanders his friend, I'm going to cut him down. If somebody's coming to slander, he cuts him down. I can't tolerate somebody who's arrogant and broad heart. These are the people that David HaMelech wants to stay away from. He says, I can't tolerate arrogant people. My eyes look out, it means I'm scouting out for trustworthy people that they should be with me. When he wants to find people that he should associate himself with, and his cabinet, his government, he wants to find the Ne'mani Eres, he wants to find the people that are trustworthy, loyal people. The people who go in the upright path, those are the people who are going to serve me. And then the pasuk that he brings, somebody who does deceit, a deceitful person is not going to be in my household. David HaMelech says, I'm not going to keep a deceitful person in my household, in my government. Somebody who speaks falsehood is not going to be established before my eyes. I'm not going to tolerate him. Every morning means constantly I'm going to be cutting down all of the wicked of the land, to cut out from the city of Hashem, from Yerushalayim, all the workers of evil. That's the Perek Kuf Aleph. 101, David HaMelech is describing how he tried to keep his household clean from any corruption, and he would scout out. He knows that the point is that it's not just they happen to be there. Anybody that has power is a to corruption. People who are on power are going to try to get close to him because that's the key to their power. So the person who's in power has to be very careful that his surrounding cabinet should not be evil people with evil intentions. So you have to be careful about Chanufa. A person who has any position of means has to be careful about people that are trying to flatter him to get to his good side. And the way to do that, the point that the Mesillas show him here, is that they're going to try to tell him praises about himself, and he's subtle and gullible, and he's going to believe them. So that's a mafsid. That's an obstacle in the midah of humility, when he has people that have an ulterior motive of getting on his good side by trying to convince him that of his qualities that he doesn't have. Now he just gives us some information. The last couple of lines, he turns to the good side. He wants to end off. Maybe that's the reason he wants to end off with a good point. And he says what the ideal situation would be, that a person should have to get friends that are interested in his good, not interested in their good. When people are interested in their own goods, and then they don't care if they're going to fool him and misdirect him and just to praise him in order to get their needs. But if a friend is really interested in your good, so he'll show you the right path. If someone's going off, he's veering from the right path. So the good friends will put him back on his track. It's only good for a person that he should try to find tamimim. The word tamimim means a wholesome person. We use the word in Tehillim a couple of times now. That Perek in Tehillim used the word tamim, that David HaMelech says he looked for tamimim. I use the word in translation of upright. Maybe it's not such a good translation. Yashar is more like an upright. Tamim is a whole person that he's not tam. The word tamim would be whole. Yaakov ish tam, a complete person. So he's trying to find these people that are whole and complete. They should be able to illuminate his eyes in whatever he's blind. He doesn't see things. A person doesn't see things. As we said earlier, that a person is limited. He's not able to understand everything. So he needs friends that'll be able to help him to see, but he doesn't see. They should rebuke him because of their love. And that's the real rebuke. The real rebuke is because you love somebody, that's why you rebuke him. If you see somebody, we give the example always, this easy example to relate with. If somebody has a hole in his pocket and he's losing money, and someone comes and says, you lost money, you have a hole in your pocket. So he's not going to say, mind your own business. He's going to be very happy to be rebuked, because he sees right away the loss. It's something that he doesn't have to figure out on the long run. He sees right away that he's losing money. And really, the rebuke is always supposed to be like that. I think the Zohar says that the real tochacha is supposed to be because you care about the person, you love him, and that's the reason why you're rebuking him, because you care about his good. So that's what he's saying over here. There is a kind of a rebuke that you rebuke somebody because you love Hashem. So you rebuke the person who's doing a chilul Hashem. That's one kind of a rebuke. But the simple rebuke is that you care about your fellow man. Of course you care about him because he's the son of God and you love all Jews. But the point is that you love him. Since I love you, the same way I care about your physical needs, I care about your spiritual needs. And I realize that if you're going off track, so you're going to suffer because of it. That's the real tochacha. That you love somebody and that's why you rebuke him to show him the right way. Of course, the rebuke also would come out in that way. If you love him, it'll come out in the way that you love him. That's his point over here. That they'll rebuke him because of their love. And that way they'll be able to save him from all the evil that he wouldn't have seen on his own. That which a person can't see on his own because he doesn't see a detriment for himself. People are biased, and biased, and they don't see their own faults. But the other people, they're good friends, they do see his faults, and if they want to help him, they'll point it out to him in the right way, under the right circumstances, that he should be able to correct whatever deficiencies he has. Heim yiru v'yavinu v'yaziru v'nishmor, they'll see it, and they'll understand it, and they'll warn him, and he'll be able to protect himself from that deficiency that he has. On this it says that the salvation comes with an abundance of counseling. It means when a person has outside information, a different angle of seeing things than he saw it himself, that's how he can be helped. So the pasuk is not talking about friends, dafka. It's talking about yoatzim, it's talking about counseling. But the point is to say that a person can't see everything on his own. He has to realize his shortcomings and his nearsightedness, that he doesn't see everything about himself. So he needs somebody from a different angle should be able to see what he's doing and give him advice. That's what advice is. Advice means you go to somebody who sees something differently than you do. If you know everything by yourself, you wouldn't need the advice. The point is that he sees things from his vantage point that you don't see, either because of his experience or his age or a different station in life. Or he doesn't have the negias that you have, since you're the negias. How would you say negias? He doesn't have the bias. He doesn't have the bias that you have. A person in his own, he's in the situation, so he has a bias. Either he was insulted by somebody or his money was taken, so it's hard for him to see clearly. But when somebody else, he asks for advice, so he doesn't have all of those prejudices, and he's able to advise him according to more seeing the facts the way they are. So that's not the point he's coming to say here about getting Eitzah dafka, but he's coming to say that a person should get friends and associates that he could trust, not people that are out for their own good and they would flatter you just for their own benefit. So that was the third mafsid, the three inhibitions that he says that are dangerous for humility. One is when a person has abundance of worldly goods, which we're not telling you not to have them, but beware that it's something that's a pitfall. You might fall because of it. That's one thing, to be careful when a person has an abundance of good, not to be taken away by it and think that he's self-sufficient and doesn't have any deficiencies. Second one is, if he's foolish, or no meaning, he should try more to become wise and see things the way they really are. A person has to discern things. We said before that all these things are a bit beyond the superficial way of looking at things. When a person looks at himself, he might consider himself praiseworthy. You have to go beneath the surface. So a person who has more wisdom is able to see that. And also we said that if he has something to feel worthy about, he doesn't feel deflated if he has deficiencies also. But a person that has nothing, it's hard for him to realize that he has faults, because then he says, what am I worth? A person has to have some self-worth even after he's humble. And the last thing that he says is about associating with people that have ulterior motives in their relationship, and they're out for their own good, and they'll try to flatter you and magnify your qualities and invent qualities that you don't have just to make you feel good, and you'll be persuaded by them and seduced. So therefore, don't have such kind of friends. Have friends that are interested in your good. Earlier on, he said that there are some fringe benefits. In the end of Parak 22, he mentioned that there are some fringe benefits of being humble, besides the actual good midah, is that it makes him less prone to be jealous, and it's very comfortable to be his friend. People enjoy his company, and he doesn't come to anger. Everything is more tranquil life. A person who's a nun, if he doesn't have his expectations out of people, humble person. He has more a tranquil life, and that's a fringe benefit. That's not the actual midah, but it is a fringe benefit. In general, we said just a point of observation on the Mesillas Yeshorim, this midah of anava is put way down the road. It's very far down the road. It's after already Chasidus, Precious, and Chasidus comes anava, and we're close to the end. Yiras Chet and Kedusha, 2 more to go before the level of Ruach HaKodesh. And the way the Mesillas Yeshorim explains it, it's a bit difficult to understand. Why is it so advanced? It seems that even a regular person much earlier could also have these understandings and realize that he shouldn't be arrogant about things that were given to him by God, and realize his deficiencies. It's just a matter of being truthful. It is advanced truth, but it's not something which we would put so high. So I don't have a good answer why it's so far an advanced level. It could be something which we could expect a person would come to this level much earlier, even before Hasidus. But to point out that there is another way of looking at anava, which is very similar to the Mesillas Yeshorim, but it's a bit, maybe that's what the Mesillas Yeshorim means, but it doesn't spell it out. There's a point of anava, humility, that means a person is always seeing himself before Hashem. He doesn't forget about Hashem. It means this issue about comparing himself to perfection is very abstract, because the perfection is not there. So a person has to realize that he's not perfect, and always contrasting himself to perfection, not to the people that are around him, that he might thought could be better than them, but he might consider himself much greater. But if he also realizes himself in contrast to perfection, so then he puts things in perspective what he really is. So the Mesillas Yeshorim just talks about the abstract perfection, but the others, I think the Gra and the Shla, they talk about a person, Shivis Hashem L'negdi Summit, that when a person realizes that he's before Hashem, he's never forgetting about Hashem. That's a madrega, that's a level that we understand is a very advanced level, that a person doesn't get that right away. He has to realize Hashem. And the more constantly he feels that's going to be the point of his humility, that he's constantly standing before Hashem. Like the Gemara says, anava is yiras aromamus. That when a person has this awe of Hashem, Hashem's exaltedness, that's the point of his humility. That's much easier to understand why it's such a high level in the levels of the Chasidus, Precious, Tara, Chasidus, anava. We see where it fits in, because he's a person who's more God conscious. And the Mesillas Yeshorim way, it would just seem to be that he's conscious of his faults in relation to abstract perfection. But when you talk about Hashem, not abstract, but that Hashem is actually there, that would be understandable why it's such a high level of in the ladder towards perfection. So we finished the issue of humility, and the next subject he's going to talk about is Yiras Chet. Since it's Yiras Chet, which literally means the fear of sin, and even though we still have time, it's a bit earlier than usual, but maybe we'll stop here because it starts mamash a new subject. So we'll stop here for this week. The subject that's left is Yiras Chet, and then Kedusha. One more subject is Yiras Chet, is fear of sin, which needs explanation because we're fear of sin from the beginning. See, he was fear of sin. And then the last one is Kedusha, which means holiness, which surely has to be explained. What does holiness mean? And the last level is going to be Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah and Tchias HaMesim. So Bez Hashem, next week we'll continue from Perek Chav Dalet.